Hi folks, and welcome back to Meaningful Money. Okay, I'm here in the beautiful village of Koverac. A good hour from my place actually, but I've been here seeing a client, hence the suit. Need to carry on our little series here on life stages, talking about the things that you need to be thinking about at the different stages of your life. Makes sense, hence the simple title. We talked last time about sort of young, free and single, the things you've got to think about. Yes, you do need to think about some things in that period. And this time I'm going to talk about what I call DINKies. That's D-I-N-K, double income, no kids. So the sort of early stages of commitment with somebody else perhaps, but no kids on the scene yet. So before we dive into that, as ever, I must thank my good friends down here in the bottom right. That's 7 Investment Management, who sponsor this show, and I'm very grateful to them for doing so. So what do DINKies look like? What are some characteristics of these DINKies? Well, you know, they will generally have 2 incomes, hence the name, double income, no kids. They may be renting or possibly have just bought a house or are saving up for a house deposit perhaps. Generally speaking though, financial commitments are relatively few, but perhaps more so than somebody who's young, free and single and still living at home. So the key points, the key things you need to think about if you're a DINKie. First of all, perhaps we need to talk about life assurance. I said last time, if you're young, free and single, you probably don't need to think about life assurance at all. But now maybe you ought to start thinking about it. It depends. Is there a kind of a dependency between you and your partner? You know, would there be a financial implication if one of you was to die, for example? Is there some debt that you have between you that you might need to be wiped off if the absolute worst was to happen? You know, if there's a mortgage, then you should certainly be talking about life assurance and probably critical illness insurance as well. But just think about it. Is there a kind of likelihood of financial difficulty if one of you was to die? Or if one of you was to get seriously ill and be unable to work for a long period of time? Just things to think about. It all depends really on dependency, one to another, but give that some thought. Next, you know, I imagine probably people in this sort of bracket are going to be thinking about saving. If you've got sort of 2 incomes, 2 full-time incomes, no kids around yet, they cost a bomb, children, I can tell you that from experience. But with 2 incomes and no kids, chances are there's some surplus money every month. Hopefully that's something you have established anyway, spending less than you earn. Not easy, I know, but probably now is the easiest time to do that when you've got 2 incomes, no kids to spend the money on. Of course, expenditure rises to meet income, so you can have a wonderful lifestyle, but now's the time to think perhaps some of that excess money should be saved, particularly if you're saving towards a house deposit. To put it in context, the average house price at the moment, it's July 2011 recording this, the average house price is £232,000, £628. I'll say that again, £232,628. That's the average house price. Well, mortgages are more difficult to come by these days since the credit crisis and everything, and lending criteria have tightened up. So realistically, you need at least a 10% deposit, but probably a 15% deposit. Well, 15% of £232,628 is £34,894. So you're going to have to save basically 35 grand to get into the average house these days. Well, if we assume, you know, a 3% return if you're putting money in the bank, it's going to take you 5 years at £539 a month to save up that deposit. That's a long time, and that's a lot of money to put aside every month, 540 quid a month. So that's just to give you some context about how important it is to save now, whether it's for a house deposit or whatever, but now is probably the best chance you've got to do that. So think about getting into the savings habit if you haven't already done so. And maybe now is the time, it's up to you of course, when you might start planning for having children. Having children has financial implications, as I've already said, not least because maybe, not definitely, it's up to you, but chances are your net disposable income will decrease. Even if both partners go back to work full-time after having children, there may be some childcare costs, unless you've got very willing and very available grandparents you can call on. You know, so childcare, there's, you know, less income possibly if one partner goes part-time. So now is a really good time before, you know, while you're planning for having children, now is a great time to get a kind of a cash buffer behind you. Even if you're not thinking about saving up for a house or whatever, putting money aside every month and building up a really good cash buffer that will sort of ease the situation when your income or your net disposable income drops after having children. So, you know, those are the sort of main, I think, things you need to be thinking about. If you're a dinky, have fun and enjoy the freedom, of course, but don't forget about the long term. Okay, you might think that needing a pension is a million years away, but again, if you can, now's the time to do it, even if you start small. And for goodness sake, if you're in a relationship, you must make a will. It makes no difference whether you're married or not. If you don't make a will, then you're subject to the rules of intestacy, and we talked about that in a previous video, but just make a will. It's so cheap and straightforward to do, there's really no excuse not for doing it. So those are the things that dinkies need to think about. So next time we're going to move on to those that have children, sort of family, young family, up until sort of the kids leaving for university and things like that. So that's next time. Thank you for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.